going to jump ahead or anything like that. Just start with our active Revit project. So I've made my site plan here, and we're going to do everything really within this project browser. Something that we will need to sort of wrap our head around right away is for every one of our plans here. And remember, some of them are just generated from levels, right? And we don't actually use them for anything. But for every drawing we make, we need a copy of our site plan. So, and I will show you what I mean. So some things that you want to get established right away, the one thing, I guess, is the cropping of your drawing. Because I'm going to make a duplicate of this site plan, and I'm going to call it my demolition plan. And I'm going to make a duplicate of my site plan, and I'm going to call it my materials plan. And every one of those copies is going to inherit nothing else, really. It can inherit other things, but really the most important thing is the frame. So to start with, before I even copy my site plan, I want to think about a little bit more what belongs in the drawing and what does not. Because right now it just frames all of my CAD. Does that make sense? So the first thing I need to do is down here with all these little icons, there's one that's got a little like cropping symbol and a light bulb or maybe a magnifying glass. And it says show crop region. I need to turn that on. And what that's going to do is it's going to basically show me the extent, the default extent of my drawing. Once I have that crop region turned on, I can change it. It's not so much that you can never change this, it's that if I change it in one drawing, it's not automatically going to update in every other drawing. So I want to get it right. So I'll start here, and each one of you is going to set up your cropping differently. Okay, but, sorry? You can totally undo it. Yeah, usually I then click on the same thing to hide the crop region, but you can always go back and edit it further. Okay. So thinking really carefully about what you need to see and what you don't, and how much context and all of that. Okay. So it doesn't matter so much if you hide or hide it, but sometimes I'll hide it just so I don't inadvertently click it and mess it up. So now I've cropped my view, so I'm pretty happy with it. The next thing I need to do is I usually use my site plan for design, and then I use copies of my site plan for visualization. So if I want to draw in plan, I'll always go back to my site plan to do that. But it's not going to work as the basis for my drawings, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on duplicate view, and I have several options to duplicate this, and I'm just going to choose the first one, duplicate. So now I have site copy 1. I'm going to right click and go to rename, and I'm going to call it demolition plan. So this view is identical to the site plan, but pretty quickly I'm going to start changing some of the way that my demolition plan looks so that it matches the requirements for what you should be showing on a demolition plan. And because I've left my site plan alone, it's not going to change how this one looks. So just by duplicating this, I have not made a copy of my file or my geometry or my line work. I've just made like another window into it. So let me stop and see if there's any questions. Pretty straightforward. So the other thing I want to do is I want to set up my sheet. And I think, I'll show you how to put it on a sheet really quickly just so you see that part. But then I'll go back to editing how my demolition plan looks. Then I'll edit how my sheet looks. Okay. So further down in your project browser, beneath 3D views and elevations and everything, is this area called sheets. And it comes with some default sheets for like architectural projects, and I usually just select them all, right click and delete them. So now I have no sheets. and I'll right click on it again and click new sheet, it's going to give me my options for title blocks. And if you do a default construction template Imperial with Revit, it will give you a pretty good title block similar to what Chen Yu showed you. There are other templates out there, or an office template, and that would have a different title block built in. But just use the default if you want. You can load templates, but I'll just say OK. And we get a nice page right here. And it has a title block. And when I expand sheets now, I see an unnamed sheet, which I can right click and rename to demolition plan. Before I click OK, notice down here it says unnamed, and as soon as I change the name of that sheet, it puts this down here. Put it in the wrong place, but I can also put it up here if I want, but I like to have it here. And here, I'm going to go in and edit this later, right? And edit where the text goes. But for now, what I have is I have a sheet, default layout, named demolition plan, and I have a view also named demolition plan. Putting my view on my sheet is as easy as dragging it and putting it on here. Okay, and now it's on my sheet. And I can do a little bit of setup for this. The view has a scale that's set in its properties, and you can see that it comes with a little scale and a title right down there that comes along with it. If I go to this drawing and I change the scale, and you're going to determine the scale, that's up to you. But let's say I do something like this. It's going to change the scale here. It's linked. And of course, it's going to change the size of my graphic. Right? So let me do something dramatic. So I'm clicking on that view. Right? Now I've got a scale that's way too big for my sheet. But if you're doing like a little detail, that scale might be good. Right? 6 inch equals a foot. 1 inch equals a foot. Let's try that. Of course, so we're going to want to look for the right scale to fit it on our sheet and also be appropriate to the information being shown. Right. So 1/8 of an inch, that's pretty close. I could either go in and crop that view a little bit more, and now is the time to do it. Because from now on, I'm going to be duplicating sheets and it'll have the same placement of the view. So I could either crop that view or I could change the scale. This is probably too big because I've left no room for a legend, no room for notes. Right. So maybe I'll go with a 1/16 of an inch equals a foot. So I'll play around. Right. Something like 3/32 of an inch equals a foot for this could work well. It's fine to have blank space on your sheet sometimes. Like if you don't have to fill up every little bit, but you just want to make sure that it's going to fit and show enough information. So then I want to get this sort of placed where I want it on my sheet. This also leaves room for notes, legends, schedule, details on this sheet. So I'm going to say, okay, I'm pretty happy with that. Save. Okay. Questions so far? It's very simple. And every time I change that scale, it changes right here. And it also changes it on my drawing. And we can, if we have multiple scaled images on our drawing, we can also change that later. Actually, if we have multiple scaled images on our drawing at different scales, the scale in the title block just says varies. Okay, so very easy to set this up. Now we need to do a couple things. Some of our work we have to do is to change how our drawing looks, to change how the information on our title block, and to annotate our drawing so that it becomes a demolition. So one of the sad things about the demolition plan is all your hard work in Revit to do your design gets hidden because this is existing conditions. But you might keep it here for now to try to figure out where you're demolishing. Or you can hide it right away if you know pretty much what you're demolishing. So in this case, I'm not going to delete my terrain because that will delete it for every view. I have a couple different options for how I want to hide it and my walls. Let's see what I got. I forget what else I have. Yeah, I got a couple walls in here. So um, there's one way is to change the overall visibility and invisibility of things on the whole drawing. And the other is to just select those elements and hide them from view. I'll show you how to do both. So, for example, and you have to change the visibility of things in the view that you're working on. So I could go here to my 3D view, for example, right click this wall and change hide in view. It's still going to be showing in my demolition plan. So all the visualization stuff you do is on a per drawing basis. So if you get a pretty good set of like graphic styles going for one view and you copy that view, it's going to carry over the visibility settings. So that can be really nice. So the way to hide something on a specific drawing is to click it. I got multiple walls here. Hang on. So like click this little wall, or I hit tab to select a chain of things. And I can just right click on it and say hide in view elements. Right. So now, of course, if I go to my demolition plan, it's also hiding there. You don't set visibility of drawing elements on your sheet. Again, you set it on the view. Right. And then to get it back, I click this little light bulb to reveal hidden elements. Right? And I can choose something like unhide in view elements. And then I click that little light bulb again. So that's the like object by object way of hiding and showing things, which can be handy if you want to say hide one wall but not another. Typically, though, in one of these drawings, we're either hiding or showing all of a thing. So it's more efficient, especially with a large project, to change the overall visual properties of the whole drawing. So the way you do that is by going to the properties of the drawing, not of the CAD or of the wall. And there's a little visibility and graphics overrides option right up here, and you click on edit. And here is where you have access to every single type of thing you could ever model or annotate or import to Revit, and total control over the graphic display. And this is going to apply for any of a like thing. It's going to apply that treatment to everything. It's called an override only because what you see here is the default way it shows. And so an override is just overriding the default. I can't think of a better way to say it. But we just call it visibility and graphics. We don't usually call it, and often VG for short. So let's take my topo surface. Model categories, this is anything that you have done using the modeling tools, like the walls, the floors, the topo surfaces, anything like that. And there's only 5 categories: model categories, annotation categories, analytical model categories, imported categories, and filters. We're going to be using 3 for the semester: model, annotation, and import. Unfortunately, we can't do much of the analytical model cool stuff. So I can go to topography, and I can either check and uncheck it. And just to show you, you can see how these look by just clicking OK, apply. So here you can see my topo surface. If I uncheck it and hit apply, it basically is hidden. Sometimes you want a little bit more control over elements of the topo surface. For example, let's say you don't want the contours to show, the jagged topo surface contours. You don't want them to show because oftentimes for a grading and drainage plan, we just use something called detail lines, which are like temporary lines. You could expand topography, right? And you could say, hide those primary contours. Or if we actually wanted to see all of the triangulated edges of the topo surface, we can see those. Those are usually turned off by default. But for a demolition plan, the topo surface is your design surface, and you want existing conditions from the survey. So we're just going to minimize and uncheck topography. We'll do the same thing for walls, stairs if we have them, floors. Right? And so you could see my wall that's right here. I don't know if you can see it, but if you look there, it disappears. And then we say OK. So that's how you hide all your design work. And of course, you'll show it in the other drawings. So that's step one. Any questions about that? So that's just visibility and graphics overrides. We're going to go back to VG to also change how our imported survey looks. Because remember what we talked about it. Who remembers how a survey should look in a demolition plan? Ciela. Yeah, it's called screening it back and making it all grayscale. Absolutely. I'm going to temporarily do something else, which is going to manage and manage links. I think I have my design base in here, which I'm just going to take out right now. Actually, never mind. Back to visibility and graphics. Imported categories is anything you've imported. So for example, my design base, which is different from my survey, it's my cropped survey that I started to do my CAD line work on. I can just uncheck it, and that removes any of my design line work. And now all I'm left with is my site survey. And I basically want to treat everything in my site survey the same way, which is light. So it looks like you can click here, and here's where you have your override categories. So you can choose the way that the line looks. So it's a variety. Let me make this dark. Right? So you can change the color of stuff. Right? And so then you can see a preview of that color here. So you can get some different line types and line weights. However, when I apply that, nothing happens. I don't know why that is, because what this is supposed to be doing, he's taking everything in that category and treating it the same, but it doesn't work the way it's supposed to. Right? So now we have, oh, sorry. Let me just make sure I'm right about that. Yeah, it doesn't do anything, and I don't know why it's there. So for my ESF survey, if I expand it, I see that I can override specific layers however I want to. So in this case, this is how you get things to have different line weights, line types, and opacities, is just by choosing the type of element and then giving it a visibility and graphics treatment. So when it comes time to do other plans, for example, we could choose all our walls and give every wall the same treatment, which is what you want to do in a construction document. You don't want some walls to be a little bit of a thicker line than other walls. So it's a really fast way to set this up, and most firms will have standards for how you do this. Yeah. I've run into it with every CAD file. Yeah, when I try to change it by changing the main file name, it does not filter down. And and I'm not actually sure if it's supposed to do that, but it sure looks like it is. So don't worry, you do not have to go through item by item. No way. You just shift click everything and click override once. Right? So now I'm going to keep a solid line, but I'm going to give it like this type of gray. Say OK, and then apply it. And you can see that that screens everything back. And it's up to you how much you want to screen it. But you just need to select everything in the expandable menu. Yep, shift click. And then I just clicked override for whichever one was I clicked last. So questions about visibility and graphics? And really it is what you see is what you get. Particularly what you see on the sheet. Some of these lines, just make sure we can go in and just double check line weights, right? So back to our imported categories. They should all be the same, but never hurts. So we'll choose a line weight of like 1. Actually, yeah, maybe they did need to be changed. So you could do, again, whatever you want, but something nice and lightweight, but still visible. So that's I'll do 2 just to test it out, and you can do fractions of a line thickness. Okay, and you may still want to go back in AutoCAD and like there are some things that you may not need in the survey. Okay, so now when we go back to our demolition plan, our sheet also has shown those changes. Okay, so now I want to get into the title block itself. Oh, and I should say, this line, weirdly, I do not know why, but it does not change as dynamically as I like it to, and it's really hard to change. Like its length doesn't change. I just have to keep clicking on it until I get lucky. I don't know. I don't have. Sometimes I'll move it around and then I can change it. I don't know, but if you click on it the right way, it will let you stretch it. Yes. Oh, thank you. There we go. Click the view. Sometimes I think I'm just clicking it enough that I click it without meaning to. Click the view and it highlights the line. I forgot that. So then the line can be changed. When you scale the view, it does not seem to scale the line. So you then have to do that yourself. All right. So now that we have our sheet set up, we want to change what shows up in here. There's 2 ways to change a sheet. One is to change the overall layout of it, and the other is to change the information in it per sheet view. So things we might want to change in the overall layout that are reusable from sheet to sheet are the logo, the company name, the positioning of things. And things we might want to change from one sheet to the next are like the name of the sheet, for example, the numbering of the sheet. Oh, I know what happened here. This is fine. I need to rename it to L-1.0, which I don't love because I like to know what it is here, but it will change when I go in and I change the sheet name. Like clicking here, I can either click here or up here. Here's where I can call it demolition plan. So now it has the demolition plan, and down here in the sheets, it has both the sheet number and the sheet name. Okay, so that's the right way to do it. So these are things that you change dynamically with every sheet. They're not like structural changes to the sheet. Right. Things like owner and project name, I could change once, but also if I'm going to be copying my sheet over and over again, I might as well just change them here dynamically. But you can also go in and edit the title block itself, which is a family like anything else. And to do that, I just double click on it. And now it takes me into this tab with a dash. And although the only thing that helps me know what I'm working on is over here in the properties, it says family title blocks. Okay. So now I can change some of this stuff once. So, and I want you to put your information in here. Right? So there are multiple consultants on the project, so you could either come up with a bunch of them, like John or Jane Doe, right? Or just put yours in here with your name and your address. Right? And you can also change the project name and the client name, like SUNY ESF, Marshall Hall Landscape Redesign. You can change them here once as well, if you want to. Oh, nope, sorry, these are dynamic, so you can't change them. Those have to be changed on the sheet. The other thing you can change is your logo. Who here has a logo? Who took professional practice? Aaron has a logo. Awesome. Well, change it from something that's from Autodesk to something. Right? Use your own logo or put something else in. So I just delete that. And then I can go to Insert and Import Image. And I found a little logo I'm going to use. So a little image you can put here and then resize it. Right, put your little logo in there. Okay. And then I can close this and it's going to ask me if I want to save the changes. Right. I'm going to save it here. That's just where I save the family file into my project. Well, I don't know why it didn't update. Let's see. Probably because I haven't used the right family, but let me try this one more time. Oh, I forgot to click load into project and close and say yes. Okay. So then I just overwrite it a bunch of times and say yes to replacing it a bunch of times. And so now any changes I've made to this sheet, load in. I forgot to save this. So I can go back and edit that and put my email address and those things in there. So basically I would say everything above your revision area can be changed for the whole sheet. You can also go in and you can change like the width of the column and stuff like that. Right. So here's where I'll go in and I'll change this to SUNY ESF. That's how you change the basics of your sheet setup. So it's a family. So families are things that you change and save and become like loaded into the project and get reused. Okay. Any questions about editing the sheet? So again, just double click it. You're taken into the family editor. When you make changes to it, you do have to save it and load it back into the project. And you don't have to close it. If you want to keep editing it, you can load it into the project and just see how it looks and keep working on it. Okay, so a lot of this, I feel like I always like coming after the AutoCAD demo because a lot of this just sort of, it's built in so that it updates and links changes. The other thing that we want to do is now we've got our sheet set up, we want to do notes, symbology for demolition, and the hatched filled areas. So let me stop and see if there's any questions first. How does it seem so far? It's good. Yeah. Revit makes it really easy. These are the benefits of Revit. So many drawbacks when it comes to modeling a landscape, but this is where, and every time we update our drawing or our 3D model, all your views also update automatically. So that's one area where it really shines. Okay, so we want to go in and do hatches, symbols, a legend, and notes. And we're going to do all that in under half an hour. Right? And we can do these on the sheet or on the drawing. It doesn't really matter where you do this stuff. Just like if you do it on the sheet, it's not going to go into the drawing, versus if you do it on the drawing, it's going to show up on the sheet. So it's up to you. So there's a type of thing under annotate called a region. And that's another word for a hatch. So it's under annotate. So by the way, I should say everything we're going to do for our demolition plan is going to be annotation or drawing on top of the drawing. So the first thing that we would annotate is probably a region. I'll just click on region and it will take us into sketch mode, right? Which you're so familiar with at this point. And you can use all the different ways of sketching, right, to start to show area for demolition. I'm just going to do something like this. Okay. And once I'm happy with it, I will finish my filled region. Okay. And it's not something that you'll see in 3D because it's not physical geometry, it's annotation. Okay. But you will see it in your demolition plan. Clicking on this filled region, I can move stuff like this. I can also click on Edit Boundary and go back into sketch mode and change it that way. Right? So many ways to change that filled region. And I can change the hatch style by just clicking over here in Properties and going to Filled Region. The default is diagonal crosshatch. And there's a number of different types of fills. You can also change these, just like you can change wall types and floor types. I can click on this filled region, go to Edit Type, duplicate. I might call it Ortho Crosshatch Fine. Because then I'm going to click here on crosshatch drafting and these three dots. And there's other patterns I can choose from, first of all. So it doesn't have to be a crosshatch. I can name it something else. But if I click on the pencil for Edit Fill Pattern, I can choose, I have a ton of control. Like parallel lines, crosshatch, line angle, line spacing 1, line spacing 2. So if I want it to just have a little bit more of a fill, I could change one or both of those to 1/16. Right? And now you can see that the crosshatch changed. So because I duplicated it, now I have ortho crosshatch, and then I have ortho crosshatch fine. I don't know why it changed the first one. I think if I just switch away from the view and come back, it will not be as fine. So you can easily go in to edit the family and duplicate it to build off of one of those. So for example, if this is my hardscape, and then I'm going to do a second filled region for softscape, and it's fine in a demolition plan to have it be somewhat angular, but you also can do like splines if you want to. So I'm not stuck with the same pattern for each of these. Right? I could do something like lines and a hatch to represent, at the very least, hardscape and softscape. And if you're demolishing concrete, asphalt, and brick, and you want to show those as different hatches, all the better. Questions? Super simple. We're not going to get into tags or keynotes for the demolition plan, but just some simple stuff. To be honest, like there are X symbols out there, but I just use a letter X. That's what everyone I know does. Is I just click somewhere and I type X. You might want it to be bolder, right? So I can go in and edit this text like that. But if I want it to be bigger, this is one of those things where it would be nice if there was just like a nice Microsoft Word looking thing, and there isn't. It's a family like everything. So I can go into Edit Type, duplicate, and I might call it like Demo Plan X. And I just change the text size. Okay, and it just makes it bigger. That is like maybe a bit more than is really needed in Revit. Maybe now it doesn't have to be bold because it's so big. And then I just stick this over a bunch of things. Right? And literally just like copy and paste it onto new things. This is like very simple. Don't overthink it. Okay. There are symbols for these kind of things, and you can make your own symbols, but you can keep it simple. And remember that there's different letters we can put near things. Like if you were going to salvage it, you might do either a little letter next to it or super. You could do like a superscript. Right? Sometimes we'll do that. Yes. Trees are all different sizes, so often you don't show like the tree circle or a boundary. You just put it on there. That's just an X. If you're talking about like if we have, I'm looking for like a object. I don't see too many, but let's say it was like this invert or something, you would just want it to be small enough to fit in there. With trees, you don't need to do that. Just put it in the center and just make sure, usually tree X's are much bigger than other X's. So you might actually come up with like a family of X's that is for trees, that is more like this size, and then smaller X's for something like inverts or trash cans, or you wouldn't demolish a trash can. Pedestal for a sculpture or something like that. But no, you usually just X over it. Okay, so that's really the symbology of the plan. You can always add text with leader lines if you need to. So see, you've got it right here. So say you wanted to put a note right on the plan. Right. So I could click like this. This would be something you would typically put in the notes on the whole document, but just for example. So that's how you can do like a leader arrow, and then you can always go in and change how that arrow looks. So if you wanted to put a note like right there, that's one way to do it. Usually architects and sometimes like detailed plans for landscape architecture use a whole keynoting system. We will learn that when we do materials plan. I think the book even says to use keynotes, which are like basically like numbers or letters with an arrow going to something, and then the number on the plan has a note. We're not going to do it for the demolition plan because it's just usually not needed. But we do still need to do a legend and notes on the whole document. So before I do that, any questions on simple symbols for the demolition plan and simple hatches? Don't overthink it. It's like, do your best. This is like general areas for demolition. Okay, so back to our sheet. Now it has everything great here. The legends can be done a couple different ways. You can do like on your drawing, you could do like a new drawing with just these symbols, or you could extend the view box to include like a little legend over here. But the right way, and I will say I actually prefer it, is to use the legends area of the project browser to create a legend for each sheet. So that's how I'm going to show you how to do it. Is I would go into legend, right click and do new legend, demolition plan. And scale for this, I usually just do custom and I make it 1:1. It's like, I don't know why there's a scale for the legend, to be honest. So now it takes us into this big open area that just says demolition plan. And you might think for a second, what happened to my demolition plan? It's where looking over at the properties can remind you, oh, I'm in legends. Okay, it's now asking me to make a legend for my demolition plan. I'm simply going to make a region with a circle, an oval, a rectangle, or a square, right? And fill it with my same hatches. Right? So for example, here's this. And then I'm going to expand my legends and put my expand this, put this over here. Maybe I do need to put a scale in it. I'll change that. Yeah, never mind. You do need a scale. Otherwise, the hatch will look wrong. So this is where now, clicking on that view, you can see how the line does not scale. So if I click on this, now I can get my little line handles. What do I usually do with the legend leader text? I put it off my sheet. Because what I really want is something that says the word legend. So I just take this text and I make it go far away. Because there's no way to get it off. Right? So if my legend is going to go like right here, I just click this and I just send it. Over there. Okay, back to my legend. Now I'm going to do a second region. And actually, what I can do is if I want them to all be the same size, I can just copy and paste my region a couple times. And then just give it a new fill. Okay. And then use text right next to it. Oops, wrong kind of text. To say escape. And you can certainly go in and change the text size. Here's where I would go in and I would do demo plan X. And I might put remove tree. Sorry, these are hard to move around. There we go. Yeah, there you go. You can do line types here. And then, so back on our plan, you can see that our legend shows up there. So if you do it this way, what you will have at the end of your whole project is a view, a legend, and a sheet for every drawing that we're asking for. Okay? And you can copy them easily and make duplicates of them and work off them. So once you get one set up, it goes a lot faster. The last part I want to show you is notes and I guess symbols. Notes are very easy. Just make a text box. Notes don't always need to be in the exact same place of a plan. Uh, like for example, let's see. I just want some text to put in there. So remember, notes are a way to give an overall explanation for everything in the plan. So if there's a one-time thing, you would not put it in your notes. Right? If there's something that's going to be applicable to multiple parts of what's happening in your drawing, you would put it in notes. Okay. Um, so obviously the text here is a little big. So like everything else, and some people use all caps, and some people don't use all caps. Some people number them, some people don't. I've got it on my demo plan X. So this might be closer, or you can also go in as with everything else, go to edit type, oops, duplicate it, change the text size here. So I might call this notes. And usually you want a space between each of these. Right, so. And so forth. Okay. Last thing, like what if you want to put a north arrow in, for example? You could draw one easily, but Revit doesn't really come with them. But I'll introduce you to a cool site where you can get a lot of stuff. Because in Annotate, you see there is the option for a symbol, and you get the whole, impressive option of one center line. So really, it doesn't come with anything. But there are lots of sites where you can get stuff, and my favorite is RevitCity.com. So let me log in. You can get a lot of cool stuff here. I'm going to go to downloads and I'm going to search for North Arrow. And it's going to give me a lot of options. And I can also edit these further, just like you need to edit anything in the family. Let's go with something simple here. Download now. Right. So it's downloaded my family file. I'm going to put it somewhere where I can keep track of these because I probably want to use them over and over again over the course of my time in this, at least this class. So I'm going to call it, oh, I hate when it does this, symbols. Hi. And I'm going to place my north arrow in there. Okay, so now in Revit, under annotations, I'm going to click on symbol, and you can see there's a little folder and it says load family. So all I need to do is go where I put it. I'm going to go, yeah, I'm going to go faster, just go to my downloads, but really go to where you put it. And I'm going to find, it will show me in whatever folder all of the family files that are available. They should be pretty accurate. All right, so now I have a north arrow family with a few different iterations. One that's called plan and one that's called site. Usually the site one, I think, has an option for true north and project north. Do you guys know what the difference is between those? Okay, well, I'll tell you that in a sec. Let me just plop it on my plan and then I'll tell you. All right. So now I can just take a little north arrow and stick it here or by my scale or wherever you want to. Okay? So that's how you get symbols. Okay. Yes. It's actually not. It is a RFA file, which is Revit family. Yeah. You could make them in Illustrator and save them as CAD, but usually what people do is they actually draw them in in Revit. They create the family in there. But yeah, let me review how to do that. But you can certainly draw them in Illustrator, for example, or CAD, and bring them in. It's free though. Yeah, it's a great site. It's totally free. I don't think you get charged for anything. Okay, so we're in luck for the Marshall Hall folks. Other what people may not be. You and with the Marshall Hall project, the buildings on the SUNY ESF campus are pretty much like north south, east west. Right? So that's really nice for us because True North also aligns with the linearity of the architecture and the circulation for our campus. But what if that's not the case? What if it's like a street grid that's like this, right? Or a building that's rotated and we're responding to the building? Or an open space that's sort of off from totally north, south, east, west. If it's off a little, I mean, often architects just want to work rectilinearly, right? And at right angles. So they will adjust the drawing so that the often right angles of the building align perfectly with the horizontal and vertical datums. So in that case, if you turn the whole project, north arrow is going to turn with it, right? So project north is the vertical orientation of the sort of major line work of the project site on the sheet, and usually it looks like a regular north. And true north is going to be however much that real north arrow rotated along with the project. So it's very common to rotate a project so that it fits better on the sheet and is easier for drawing and modeling, and to not have it be true north. You want to try to do it so that north is not like pointing down or something to one side or the other, right? So what this arrow is showing is project north and then true north. If you don't want that on there, right, you can actually double click on it. It's its own family, right? Load that into the project. What happened to, right? Or I think I can actually just click this. I should be able to just get rid of this. I'm not sure why it's not deleting. Family editing is so hard. You should be able to load that into the project. There we go. And so now, so I was able to go in and modify it, and you can draw lines. When you go into the family editor, there is also like sketching that you can do if you want to, but mostly I just didn't want True North on there, just Project North because it is my True North. That's a little aside. So for those of you on the graduate side, when you're setting up your sheets, if North puts all of your stuff at an angle, you can totally rotate it so that it's vertical and horizontally aligned. And then just make sure when you rotate it, you draw a line north south and rotate that line too, and that will be your true north. Any questions about that? Last thing you do is just print it to a PDF. Right? And remember, you're going to print it to the high volume black and white printer 11 by 17. So what I would suggest you do is plot it to a full size PDF. Okay. Because we're going to want the full size PDFs in the final submission, and then plot that PDF shrunk down to 11 by 17. Instead of setting up two page sizes and two sheets, one that's 11 by 17 and one that's 36 by 48, just plot it big to a PDF, and then when you go to print to that printer, just say like fit to page. And like we won't be able to read what you're writing, but that's okay. We're more just looking for like general graphical stuff. Okay. So any last questions?